Today we're discussing a classic beat 'em up that was fun on the Super Nintendo in the early 90s. It was one of my favorites, especially during sleepovers at my friend Reed's place. This was a game we'd rent, unlike, what was it that game he owned? Rival Turf, which never quite had the same appeal. Aloha, I'm Mike, and welcome to the Gaming Road Warrior channel, where we look into the retro games of the 80s, 90s, and 2000s. Grab your controller and let's talk about Super Double Dragon for the Super Nintendo and Double Dragon for the Sega Master System. Two side-scrolling brawlers that took the iconic Double Dragon franchise to new heights. Was it a knockout, or did it fall flat? Let's break it down and go back to October 1992. Super Double Dragon was developed by Technos Japan Corporation and published by TradeWest. Honestly, I've always been a little unclear about the plot of this game. Is it a remake of the original, or is it truly a sequel? For one, we don't see Marion getting kidnapped or hurt in this game like in the first one, and there aren't any cutscenes like in Double Dragon 2 or 3 on the NES. Another strange thing is that there's no mention of Marion being with Billy Lee in this installment. Pretty odd considering that was a key part of the story in the original. Maybe this is just a reimagining of the first game. Who knows? If we look at the instruction manual, the story goes, Marion, a beautiful policewoman, is a student of Kung Fu and part-time assistant instructor at the martial arts training school run by Billy and Jimmy Lee. A narcotics investigator, she has disappeared while attempting to infiltrate the ruthless criminal mob known as the Black Shadow Warriors. It will take all of your incomparable fighting skill and knowledge to find and rescue Marion. Alone or with the help of your brother, you must face the fearsome onslaught of the Shadow Warriors with the fabled power and ferocity of the Double Dragon. The gameplay, which is the heart of any beat-em-up, really shines in Super Double Dragon. The combat feels fluid and satisfying, with tight controls. That may be a bit slow at first, but they allow for smooth chaining of punches, kicks, and special moves. You can grab enemies, throw them, or pick up a variety of weapons like nunchucks, boomerangs, knives, firebombs, drum cans, rocks, and even a combo stick to gain the upper hand. The more you play, the better you get at pulling off combos and using the environment to your advantage, which makes each fight more enjoyable. One major improvement in this version is the addition of a block button, something that wasn't common in earlier beat-em-ups. This brings a whole new level of strategy to the game, allowing you to counter enemy attacks instead of mindlessly mashing buttons. It's a small change, but it makes a huge difference in how the game feels. A standout moment for me is when you block an enemy's attack, then grab their arm and repeatedly punch or kick them 3 times. After that, you can land a satisfying multi-hit attack to their head with either punches or kicks. It's such a cool move, and one I always loved pulling off. Another cool tip is the use of the continuous kick, which you press the kick button and down on the control pad, which will kick your opponent in the lower leg and face. This resulted in a stunned enemy to finish off with any of your moves.
90s movie break.
The Double Dragon movie in 1994 is widely considered a campy, poorly executed adaptation of the iconic video game. Set in the dystopian future, it stars Mark Dacascos and Scott Wolf as the Lee brothers, Robert Patrick as the main villain, Alyssa Milano as Marion, and Julia Nixon as Satori, which she is the Lee's legal guardian, battling Robert Patrick's character for a powerful magical medallion. The plot was cheesy, the special effects were laughable, and the film was criticized for straying too far from the game's roots, with awkward action and undeveloped characters, especially with Scott Wolf's horrible martial arts screen presence, compared to Mark Dacascos, who did martial arts and is the only reason why I watched this movie. I also enjoyed watching Julia as well since I remembered her in Rambo 2, and she also has a black belt in karate. While I did like Marion being played by Alyssa since I enjoyed watching Who's the Boss with her back in the day. Despite its cult following, it's remembered as a low point for video game movies. Now let's talk about the visuals. Super Double Dragon looks impressive for a 16-bit game. The character sprites are large and well animated, while the backgrounds are rich in detail and offer a lot of variety. I especially appreciate how Billy and Jimmy each have their own unique fighting styles. For example, Billy uses an open hand to deliver a back fist, while Jimmy keeps his fist clenched for a straight punch. It's these subtle differences that really set the game apart. Throughout your journey, you'll fight across iconic locations like Las Vegas, the airport, Chinatown, the Golden Gate Bridge, the slums, forest and mountains, and finally Duke's house. Duke, the final boss, runs several martial arts gyms, though most of them were taken by force. Like many villains, Duke has a mysterious past that adds intrigue to his character. Of course, no 90s game is complete without its music. Super Double Dragon has an energetic, catchy soundtrack that perfectly complements the action, from intense battle tracks to somber moments. I'll play two of my favorites here. Co-op mode has always been a defining feature of the Double Dragon series, and Double Dragon is no exception. Teaming up with a friend to take down waves of enemies is both thrilling and rewarding, as you strategize together and share the glory of every hard-fought victory. I'll never forget the part with the double end striking punching bag. I'd lure enemies over and let the bag do the damage. Of course, my friend Reed would sometimes wander into the line of fire, and we'd laugh every time. To even the score, he'd grab the heavy bag, lift it off the floor, and hurl it at me. Those were some truly unforgettable moments. Sure, you might accidentally knock your partner out, but it adds to the chaos and fun. If you're after a great couch co-op experience, this game delivers. So is Super Double Dragon worth your time? Absolutely! It's a fun beat-em-up with smooth gameplay, great graphics, catchy music, and a solid co-op mode. Perfect for fans of 90s action. Our next game came out in 1988. If you ever played the arcade version, you know what to expect. Punches, kicks, and non-stop action. But how does this version hold up? Let's take a look. First off, this game starts with Marion getting punched in the stomach. Why is she wandering outside and chatting with strangers in the first place? Now let's talk visuals. The graphics on the Master System are fine, featuring okay character sprites and okay background designs. While it might not be as flashy as the arcade version, the game does another okay job of capturing the classic side-scrolling action. Billy and Jimmy Lee are back, ready to take on the mean streets. The controls are simple, which is perfect for a beat-em-up. You've got punches, kicks, and the ability to grab and throw enemies. The hit detection is pretty bad. Your punches and kicks seem to not have really an impact on the enemy. They tend to brush it off and hit you back. I especially hate the fact they love jump kicking you. The whip in the game seems to be the only weapon to give you an advantage in taking out multiple enemies, unlike your Kung Fu in Super Double Dragon, which is a lot better. One of the game's features is its two-player mode, where you and a friend can team up to battle through levels together. It's a blast. I first experienced this game during a visit to one of my mom's friend's house. The lady had 3 boys and I watched them play co-op, but they never let me join in. Unlike me, when I had friends over, I was a generous host and always let them play on my Nintendo. It wasn't until I bought some Sega Master System games they once owned and gave them a try that I realized how much fun they really are. As for Double Dragon on the Master System though, it's a bit of a mixed bag for me. What stood out about this version compared to the NES was its co-op gameplay. The game features 4 stages: the slums, the factory district, the park, and the Black Warriors headquarters, culminating in a final showdown with the sinister end boss, Willy. Really? His name is Willy? I have Free Willy visualized in my head as the bad guy. Unfortunately, similar to the NES port, there's no dedicated jump button. While the arcade version had a separate jump button, both the NES and Master System versions require you to press both buttons simultaneously to make your character jump. So does Double Dragon for the Sega Master System live up to the arcade version? For me, it's just okay, but I still enjoy it. One thing I appreciate is that it offers plenty of continues until Stage 4. While it's not a perfect port, there's one frustrating issue. When you're attacking enemies, you can still get hit unless you jump kick and run away, which doesn't feel very satisfying. That said, the co-op mode alone makes the game worth playing. I may not fully capture the arcade experience, but the good news is, it doesn't completely miss the mark either.
90s Game Break.
First up, we have Hook, released in 1992. Inspired by the beloved Hook movie, this action platformer puts you in the shoes of Peter Banning, the grown-up version of Peter Pan. Peter must rescue his kidnapped children and defeat the infamous pirate Captain Hook. The gameplay is a fun mix of platforming and combat. You'll swing from vines, battle pirates with your trusty sword, and explore the vibrant levels of Neverland. The game even introduces flying, where you'll need the help of your friend Tinkerbell and her magical pixie dust. While the visuals are charming, the gameplay can feel a bit repetitive at times. However, the exciting action and nostalgic vibes make it a rewarding experience for fans of the film. Playing this for the first time, I was genuinely surprised by how enjoyable it is. Based on Robin Williams' movie Hook, this is definitely a game you should try. Next, let's talk about Wings 2, a flight combat simulator released in 1993. Set during World War I, Wings 2 lets you step into the cockpit of a biplane as you engage in aerial dogfights. The game's story follows the life of a World War I pilot, where you take on a series of missions from strafing runs to high-altitude battles. The gameplay blends classic shoot-'em-up action with strategic elements. You'll control your plane with not precise handling while engaging in intense, 3D-style aerial combat. As you complete missions, you can upgrade your flying, shooting, mechanics, and stamina. However, these upgrades feel a bit underwhelming, as you don't seem to have a noticeable impact on gameplay. The missions are varied, with a strong emphasis on strategy, whether you're bombing enemy targets or escorting allies, which sucks. The graphics feel dated, the plane controls can be awkward with a SNES controller. The game might have benefited from arcade-style controls, but instead it opts for a more simulator-like experience. One of the darker aspects of the game is its permanent loss of a pilot when you die. There's even a memorial for them, but it's all part of the game, as we get more meat for the grinder. I typically enjoy flying games, especially those set during World War I, and if you're looking for a fun alternative, I highly recommend Red Wings American Aces on Steam. I remember renting Wings 2 Aces High and not enjoying it much. If you're curious though, give it a try. There's still some fun to be had. I've got a question for you. Do you consider Die Hard a Christmas movie? Personally, I love watching it around the holidays along with Home Alone 1 and 2. But my best friend posted on Facebook a while back arguing that Die Hard is definitely not a Christmas movie. I'd love to hear what you think, so let me know in the comments. And feel free to share your thoughts on the other games as well. Thanks for joining me as we explored 2 Double Dragon games. Take care and remember, gaming is your road to adventure.
I got sick of getting punched in the gut. I love breaking things. this even happen? Let's go beat up some bad guys and find out.